right, guys, today we are adding color to our pumpkin patches, and we are going to be using watercolors for these. I have my cool colored watercolors and my warm toned watercolors, as well as my neutral watercolors. So I also have a couple different size brushes. I have my medium brush here and my small brush for any really tiny details. I'll probably for the most part use my medium brush. Now, a trick for when you are watercoloring things like this is to not paint two spaces right next to each other right after each other. So if I'm gonna paint my pumpkins first, then I shouldn't then paint my pumpkin rose next, because it will bleed together because the two paints are wet and they'll just run into each other and your colors will get all mixed up. So that is the trick. So maybe I'll start with my pumpkins, and I think my pumpkins are quite small, so maybe I'll start with my smallest brush. Now, what we're going to do for this project is we are going to make sure that we are using two colors in every space. So that way we are adding some shading and things like that. This paint color was a little bit dirty. Somebody accidentally got some like brown or something in here. So all I'm doing is kind of getting my brush wet and mixing it around in there, and then rinsing my brush off until that paint starts to look a little bit more like the color it's supposed to be, which is a red-orange. Okay, so back to what I was saying is we should have two colors in each space. So if I'm starting with my pumpkins, I'm gonna start with that darker orange first. I'm gonna make sure there's not too much on my brush. And next to the lines I drew, those black lines, I'm painting with my darker orange. And the reason I'm doing that is because this will kind of be my shadow color. And so I'm putting that on the lines where the shadows would be. And then I can get my regular orange and put it in the in-between spaces for them to kind of blend. Now that I'm looking at it, it's kind of not getting quite as much of a difference as I thought it would. So maybe I'll add a little bit of red or even brown to those shadow spaces. Let's see what red looks like. Oh, red looks pretty good. Or another thing you can do, maybe I'll do another pumpkin where I do the lines with just the regular orange, and then maybe the center part of my pumpkin can be yellow. And I like to do this while my colors are still wet, so I'm doing one pumpkin at a time, so those colors kind of blend together. Ooh, that looks pretty cool. And they don't have to be all the same. Maybe you can have some that are more yellowy, some that are more orangey. It's definitely up to you. So now I'm just going on, I'm gonna make another red and orange one here. So something that's important for doing these multiple colors in one space is, let's look, now I'm going to dip into my yellow, and since I'm kind of helping them blend together a little bit on my pumpkin, my brush now has orange in it, right? So I want to rinse my brush before I go back to the yellow, because I don't want to get this yellow paint mixed up in the tray, because you are not the only one that's using those paints. A lot of other grades and classes use those paints, so it's not quite fair to mix them up for the other classes. I'm gonna add a little more orange to the edge of this one before it dries. I'm really liking that. And I can even go back and add a little bit of yellow to the center of these. Ooh, I like that too. So try to put at least two colors in each space, and you'll love what kind of shadows come out of that. Now, I don't mean like mix them on top of each other by adding two colors. Add like a shaded spot of each space and a highlighted spot of each space. Okay, now those are still quite wet, so I want to move on and not paint those next. So I think maybe I'll start with my sky up here. Now, I think I want this to be my sunset, so I'll make my sun yellow. Maybe add a smidge of orange around the edge. Because remember, we're putting 2 colors in each space. Then I think I'm going to alternate each of these sections. I think I'm going to have like orange and red sections, and then maybe like pink and purple sections. I think that sounds really cool. I'm kind of letting them blend together. That looks really cool. And then, like I said, I think I'm gonna do this pink and purple in the next section. I'm doing my best job painting, so I stay inside my lines. Wow, I think that looks so cool. Okay, so maybe I'll come back to do my ground. I think for the most part, I want my ground to be brown. I might add a little bit of maybe red or orange in there too, but for the most part, I want it to be brown. I also want to talk about watercolors and how you can change what colors you're making. If you add a lot of water to your paint and don't mix it up really, really well in your paint cup, you'll have a much lighter color. So see, I have a much lighter brown. Actually, maybe I'll just use a light brown and a dark brown. We'll see how that looks. So I'll do a really watered down brown first. Oops, and you can tell my pumpkin wasn't all the way dry. It's bleeding into my background. So I'll show you how to fix that too, because that happens to everyone. And I'll show you how to solve that problem. We'll come back to that in just a second after I'm finished painting this brown. Okay, so that orange really bled into my brown really bad. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna clean my brush, which I know you guys can't really see, but I'm over here washing my brush. And then I'm going to dry it on my paper towel and then use my almost pretty dry brush as a sponge. And you can see I soaked up a bit of that orange. I'm going to do it again. Do it again. Do it again. And there we go. It's pretty much gone. I can wait a little bit for it to dry and I can add a smidge more brown and you won't even notice it. Okay, so I really wanted to make sure to show you that because that happens to everyone, truly everyone. Okay, I'm gonna keep adding my light brown everywhere. Oh, and I just painted my sky, so it's bleeding. So you can tell this is why I say don't paint 2 spaces next to each other, but of course I'm trying to do it so you can see it all at the same time. But now we know that even if that does happen, we know how to fix it because I just showed you. Okay, so I'm going to show you on this side first. Now I'm going to mix that brown much more. So now the brown is significantly darker to go in, and I like to do it on the shaded spots. Because remember, we want 2 colors in each space. For this space, my ground, I just happen to be using the same color, but just a light version and then a dark version of the same color. And you can kind of blend those in, but what I like to do is since they're both still wet, they kind of do the work of blending for me. So that's looking really great. I'm going to do the other side. Okay, you guys, we don't have much left. I think I'm gonna go ahead and paint my barn. I definitely want it to be red. I'll probably add some brown as well. That'll make it look a little older too. Remember, I'm continuing with 2 colors in every single space. So there's my red, maybe around the edges, I'll add a bit of brown. And again, I like to do it while it's still wet so then it kind of blends, makes it look really cool. I'm gonna put some brown on my tree trunk. And I think I'll go in and add some black detail to that. It's so important to paint with the very tip of your brush. If you're smashing your brush into your paper, it's really hard to do those little details. Okay, so I'm gonna add a little bit of black to my tree. I'm also gonna add, I think, a little bit of this blue to my tree. Oh, that looks so good, I love it. All right, you guys, there is my finished pumpkin patch. I think it looks so amazing. I am so excited to see what you guys do. Remember, we're gonna use 2 different sizes of brushes, and in every space, make sure you're adding 2 colors to really show some highlights, some shadows, some gradients from one color to the next. I didn't add any white spaces. I made sure to do my best painting. And then remember that trick of never painting 2 spaces next to each other at the same time. And then you won't have that problem that I kind of had a couple times of colors bleeding into each other like this one is right here. But I'm glad we did learn the little trick of how to clean it up because it's not that difficult. All right, guys, I cannot wait to see your pumpkin patches. Good luck.